Alright guys, I'm back again with a new video with the title Trump Conspirator Loses Appeal in Court. So here's a bad news coming for Trump from the court. Let's start the video. Let's dive into the video without wasting any time. Let's see what is the bad news for Trump. I don't know, are you a supporter of Trump or are you a hater of Trump? You can tell me in the comment section. Let's start the video. I'll give my review in the end of the video, so please make sure to watch the video till the end.
This is Michael Popak, Legal AF. Mark Meadows, former chief of staff for Donald Trump, likes to lose, and now he's lost again in his efforts to try to have the entirety of all 12 plus judges of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals overturn the ruling by the chief judge of the 11th Circuit, William Pryor, a very rock-ribbed conservative Republican who ruled against Mark Meadows along with two other members of the panel back in December. Mark Meadows didn't like that. He wanted, I guess, to lose in front of the entire 11th Circuit, hoping that somebody was going to find that the chief judge of the 11th Circuit, a Republican, Bill Pryor, had made a mistake. Well, nobody did. Nobody on the 11th Circuit wanted to take up this issue at all, and now it stays where it is, with a loss for Mark Meadows and an inability to take his case over to federal court unless and until the Supreme Court rules otherwise. Now, this was a scathing decision by the original panel, what we call the merits panel, led by Chief Judge Bill Pryor. He did not mince words, and he actually made what we think is new law that now the entirety of the 11th Circuit supports, which is that you can't use federal officer removal statute, that statute, if you are a former federal officer. Well, there's no dispute that Mark Meadows isn't currently the chief of staff for anybody. At best, he was the chief of staff for Donald Trump up to and including Jan 6th and slightly beyond. So the new law the 11th Circuit made, and we sort of, describe that on Legal AF as a bombshell, because in all the years that the 1442A federal officer removal provision had been in place, no court had ever ruled that it didn't apply to former officers. Now, we knew something was up because after the briefing by Fani Willis's office and by Mark Meadows' lawyer, who was a pretty good lawyer, the 11th Circuit panel came back with, we want you to brief a new issue. Why does 1442A apply to a former executive member of the executive branch at all? Why? And so the entire order that came out, a 42-page decision that came out in December, that was the basis for this new attempt at a full appeal, ruled at the very beginning, the very top of the case. They found that as a matter of law, there is no right to seek removal if you're no longer in office. If you were currently the chief of staff, maybe you could take the case from a state prosecutor from a state court into a federal court, but not if you're former. New law that they're the only circuit that have ruled on it. It is now the law of the land unless and until another circuit rules differently or the United States Supreme Court takes up the matter, but we're very far away from that. And in that opinion, which we went over in detail back in December, Judge Pryor recited all of the bad conduct in the indictment that they ultimately found Mark Meadows was outside the scope of his proper functions as a chief of staff. They found instead it was electioneering and it was campaigning and it was a participation in a conspiracy to overturn the election results, which are clearly not part of the job description, not part of the scope of responsibilities for anybody in the White House, let alone the chief of staff. And so they took special delight, I thought, in a very unsparing order by Judge Pryor, the chief judge again of that court, to outline all of the things in the indictment that are outside of the scope of any chief of staff's duties. The call to Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, to try to find 11,750 votes or whatever it is. The attempt to enter the room and stop the counting when Mark Meadows visited Coffee County. The attempt to interfere with the forensic audit of the count down in Georgia. His efforts to make phone calls to election officials and elected officials. This was all campaigner-in-chief stuff, not working for the president as commander-in-chief stuff. And that is what William Pryor in his order said. In fact, when he gets to the part about, as I said, the first part of the order is the new decision that this does not apply to the former federal officers. Again, new law. And so when they went to the heart of the indictment, and they went through all of their actions, they could only conclude that he was not working under the color of law or color of his office when he performed these duties. Now, as I said at the top of the hot take, Mark Meadows does not like that, doesn't like the fact that the order recited verbatim all the places where he stepped outside his role as chief of staff. Now remember, or I'll tell you straight here, that when he testified, Meadows, in his own hearing, he did himself no favors and covered himself with no glory. He couldn't really remember his responsibilities. He had difficulty distinguishing. He's basically saying, I'm always on 24/7, whatever the president wants, I do. And the court said, yeah, but there's certain things the president wants you to do that are outside your duties as a chief of staff and have now verged into being crimes. And so what Mark Meadows, not content with that, and for whatever reason, not wanting in the last 2 months to take a direct appeal or attempted appeal at the United States Supreme Court, instead went back and asked for an en banc ruling. En banc means instead of having the 3-judge randomly assigned merits panel to decide an appeal, which is what happens generally in federal courts, you ask to have the entirety of the panel rule on it. Now, considering that Chief Judge Pryor made new law to find that you can't use this kind of federal officer removal for a former employee or a former officer, I would have thought there would at least be a majority to vote for and to take up the case en banc and make a decision, all 12 or so. But there wasn't any. Mainly because Bill Pryor is a very well-respected judge. There's probably no more respected judge on the 11th Circuit than the chief judge at this moment, and there's no way they were going to countermand him or veto him. And they thought his analysis and legal underpinnings behind it were right. And so the hit today against Mark Meadows is not one of the remaining members of the panel, which is like another 9 people, because you had the 3 that were on the merits panel that voted 3-0 against Meadows. Of course, they weren't going to vote to reconsider or have it reheard en banc. And then he had to get a vast majority of the other 9. He was never going to get that. He was never going to get enough of that 9. He would have to get 7 out of the 9 in order to have en banc. And that math was never going to happen for Mark Meadows. So what does it mean? It means, as of right now, the only case and the only precedent, because it's the only decision by a appellate court in the federal system, is that former federal officers can't use 1442A to remove if they're no longer members of that branch or that members of that office. That is the law of the land, as I said, unless there's a competing or conflicting decision by another circuit, which hasn't happened yet.
Okay, this was a brief video about Trump, the Trump case. According to you, what is the future of Trump cases? Can you tell me? I don't know what is going to happen in upcoming days before the elections, but I think something bad is going to happen with Trump. I don't know why. Are you a Trump supporter? Are you a Trump hater, Biden supporter? You can tell me in the comment section. I do reactions on political videos of US. If you're also interested in politics, I bring important videos, important topics related to Trump, the US politics, and on my channel. So that's why I'm requesting you to please make sure to subscribe to my channel. Give your precious seconds to subscribe to my channel so that we can meet again. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye-bye.